Okay, I'm seeing some folks rolling in. There we go. Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. I'm going to give it a few more minutes for some more folks to join in, and then once we have a few folks, we can pretty much get started in earnest. Right. So let's get started then. Why not? So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today in today's webinar that we have titled Referrals That Build Empires, How to Grow Your Practice Through Word of Mouth. With me today, I have Dr. Derica Sams. To give you a bit of a background, Dr. Sams is a board-certified pediatrician with a subspecialty fellowship training in pediatric gastroenterology, hepatology, and nutrition. She's extremely qualified, but I think you better hear it from her than from me. Dr. Sams, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so exactly like Joseph said, I am Dr. Derica Sams, everything he's already said. But yes, I'm a pediatrician by training with subspecialty training in pediatric GI hepatology and nutrition. And I recently opened up my own private practice here in Georgia. We are in month 8 for this, so it's been exciting. And I'm excited to kind of chat with you guys. What I can do, and you tell me kind of what you want, but I can kind of get started in going through identifying some of these things. And under kind of the umbrella of what the topic is, I wanted to really focus in on how to really unlock the potential of patient referrals and literally really talk about how strategic referrals can elevate your practice growth and patient trust. So let's kind of get started with that.
Absolutely. Before that, Dr. Sams, I just have one question for the ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen that have joined us today. Where is Pediatric Digestive Health and Wellness located?
Yeah, so we are located in Loganville, Georgia. So that is northeast of, I would say, close to, we're in Gwinnett County. So again, northeast of Atlanta.
Perfect. And this last question, and then I'll let you take it from there. So it's been
Yeah.
8 months, you said, and I know that for the first few months it gets super tricky. So thinking back to those first few months, how'd you get your initial patients through the door?
Kind of going through what I'm going to go through today and really putting, going from door to door was actually what was the most helpful, surprisingly. And just kind of some old school marketing was what was super helpful.
Wow, that's amazing. Dr. Sams, I'm going to let you take it from here. I know you've got a lot to show us today.
And interrupt me. Feel free to interrupt me and ask additional questions as needed, okay? Because I'll get long-winded.
Absolutely. Don't worry at all. I know our panelists are probably going to have some questions, and don't worry, if anything comes up, I will certainly let you know.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty, so agenda for today, just kind of making sure that we're all on the same page. So I'll just go over the power of referrals and understanding their impact on substantial growth. And like, why do referrals matter, right? And so for me, insight specifically as a specialist and a subspecialist, again, why they're so important in my niche. And then looking at my referral outreach strategies. So I'll talk a little bit today about some of the things that I did that I have seen helpful over these past 8 months. I also look at like your patient experience and how that plays a big role. And of course, a little, side plug for you all, how Edge has made this all possible. Okay. So in private practice, one thing has like always remained true, right? So referrals, golden. Whether it's like a kind word or, from a patient or like a trusted recommendation from a colleague, referrals to me have been the most reliable source for like my sustainable growth in my practice. And so that to me has been kind of the most helpful throughout this whole process in terms of having a recommendation from a colleague or a referral from a previous like patient that I've seen. And so why do referrals matter, right? So for me as a new practice, right? New practices thrive on strong like referral networks to establish trust and maintain patient loyalty, which again is essential for for patient growth, right? We're in the field of providing a service, and so having the patients enjoy the service that you're providing can be helpful in terms for a or creating a network. Other things, higher patient retention rates. So when patients are referred to you, they're likely to remain with the practice, which again fosters this long-term relationship, and improving retention statistics can enhance, overall practice stability. And then again, building credibility within the community. For me, I was at Vanderbilt, so I was in Nashville. And so when I moved back to Georgia, I'm a Georgian, so I was born and raised in Georgia. So I moved back to home, but from a professional standpoint, I was a newbie in the area. And so I think having like the referrals and really getting yourself out there helps to build your credibility within that community, especially if you're newer within the community. And so for me, it became trusted sources to enhance my reputation within the community. It helped me also strengthen ties with, for me, it was primary care teams. So it was like pediatricians and family medicine, and kind of fostering a mutual support. And then again, just credibility amongst patients and confidence in quality care. So again, I love referrals because they come with like a built-in like trust, right? So when a patient or a physician recommends me, it carries like way more weight than an ad, right, ever could. And so the referred patients, again, they're going to be more loyal. They're often going to refer others. And so it creates like this like ripple effect that I found to be super helpful throughout this kind of growth process for me.
Dr. Sams, that's all wonderful.
Yes.
I have one question that's just come to mind. And you mentioned
Yeah.
that you get like patient-to-patient referrals and then you get doctor-to-doctor referrals. I'm just trying to understand what is the difference in impact? Say, for example, like what kind of referrals have you seen personally? Like you would have seen patient-to-patient, doctor-to-doctor, specialist referrals even. How do these differ in terms of the impact to your practice?
Yeah, so definitely from a, I would say doctor to doctor referral. Again, being a newbie in the area, it's not like I had a lot of patients that already knew me, and so in, and this is me speaking, I mean, 8 months, you guys, I got to put it in there, 8 months, right? But when I kind of came through, having those doctors, right, refer to a subspecialist within my field, again helps to form and set that foundation that, hey, this is someone that's trusted to go. And so then when the patients came, then that's kind of how it starts to build off in ensuring that they then went and spread the word and had a word of mouth.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm sorry, please continue.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So again, the key thing I would say is like laying the foundation. So what I did before I even got started with my whole entire practice and referrals and whether it was good or bad was that I analyzed the gaps in care to choose the practice type and location. And so that's important when someone is starting out, right? What do you want your practice to look like? Do you want to have a, clinic that, people are physically coming into with a physical address? Do you want to have a hybrid model? Do you want to just have all telehealth? Are you going to be accepting insurance? Are you going to just be doing like direct primary care, a DPC model? And so you within yourself have to say, okay, what is it that I'm trying to get out of this, and what am I trying to establish? Once you understand that, then you can start to identify your location base and what your local need is, right? And so I was able to do that and say, okay, I am a pediatric gastroenterologist. I want to establish a local practice that patients can drive into, but also have some telemedicine. And so, where is that need in my area that I want to live in? And so that took a lot of kind of having that information. And I really had to study the area. I had to kind of go through and say, what is the greatest need for pediatric GI care? I looked at population data, where local pediatricians and family practices were located, and again, looking to see where that gap existed. I also reviewed performance projections, and that helped me choose an ideal location that wasn't just convenient for like families, but was like strategically positioned near potential referral sources. And a pro tip is the way that I did this, right? Because I'm like just starting out, and so I was trying to be very cost effective. Was I looked at real estate marketing sheets. right? Because a lot of times they have this information. So if you're looking for an area and you're looking for renting an office space or purchasing an office space, a lot of times they will have this information and it'll give you like data of who's in that area. It breaks it down demographics. It breaks it down, within the demographics, what it looks like in terms of their overall income, what the age group looks like, what hospitals are in the area, and so that's like a easy way that you can kind of do that, and it's free if you don't want to have to pay someone to do all of that fancy calculations for you when you're deciding. Um, and then the next step, right? Once I did that, then I was like, okay, I have an idea of where I want to be. Then I wanted to build a strong online presence because in my thought was that if I'm telling someone, hey, refer to me, and I don't have any website for them to go to, I don't have anything for them to kind of refer to in the age of social media, they're where do they go? Like how are they coming to me, right? And so I took the time to build a strong online presence. And so before like a parent ever called my office, right, they're likely Googling you. So I took that in mind. And so I made sure that my like website was professional, easy to navigate, and reflected something about my practice that set me apart from my competition. So particular with me as a pediatric gastroenterologist, I do integrative medicine as well. So when I was at Vanderbilt, a lot of my additional studies and training was working alongside my mentor who does integrative medicine. And so having that niche was a little bit different than all the other like pediatric gastroenterology practices around. And so I highlighted those things too. On my website, I highlighted those things as well on my social medias, as you see kind of here. And I just picked Facebook and Instagram, and I by no means know how to, I'm not a whiz at any of these, but just again started to have an online presence. So as soon as people heard about me and went to look you up, I already had these things established, not oh, it's coming soon. And so again, this allowed for it to like highlight, again, who I served. And it was not anything fancy, but it just highlighting who I serve, how quickly could patients get appointments, and again, what made my practice unique. Also, I embedded within that depending upon, I had already chosen an idea of what platform I wanted to use for my EHR system. And so I took that and was able to embed that. So it immediately showed like all of my availability for appointments, right? So it's like, I hear about this doctor, I go to this website, I can book immediately. So it was kind of doing that. So by laying this foundation, right, and looking at first location wise, creating these like websites and social media pages, right? I only set myself up to not only attract patients, but reassure these referral partners said, okay, this person's credible and trustworthy and they mean business, like they're ready to care for patients. So that was one of the things that I kind of started out with.
Dr.
Um,
Sam's just cut in the middle here, and I'm sorry. We just got a message from Jennifer Jackie Johnson, and she just mentioned that she loved the real estate piece. That's like a super unique way to look at the best spots for clinic locations. I just thought I'd give you the heads up that that is a message, and I really love this whole referral ready experience that you've built through the website, through the entire experience of booking all the way down to the actual appointment. I just have one question. Like,
yes.
of course, we need to make sure that when the person who is being referred to comes in, they get that consistent experience from door all the way to provider. So, how do you train your team to consistently reinforce that experience?
So I think it starts with you. And so it really starts with you, right? And so it's you lead by example. So when I have my team starting with me, I initially, like in the beginning, from a training standpoint, we're like, these are the things that I'm passionate about. And so these are the things I want to come out within patient care. And the reason why that's important is because you can train someone to know how to put in a height and weight in an EHR system, right? I can train someone to go and click here and schedule an appointment. But what you can't do is make someone or train someone so readily to be as passionate about your cause as you are unless you establish that early on. So that to me was the most important, right? Especially with a new practice, and then being open to getting their feedback about how things logistically were going and changes we could make. Just having that flexibility has been the easiest. But I think the key foundation for me was establishing the passion that's there and letting them know this is a new practice. There are going to be things that we're going to be doing, things are going to be changing quickly. But the importance is patient care. And so I just kind of said that from the beginning. That was like the key to my training in the beginning.
Wonderful. That's amazing, actually. And just to actually address one of the questions, Jennifer actually asked a question here, and her question is, did you create your own website or did you hire a website designer? Because websites can be almost $7,000 minimum when you're hiring somebody to do that, and that can
Right.
be a lot of money as a new clinic. So how did you go about it?
I created my own. Again, I don't necessarily recommend any, everyone unless you want to. I like artsy things and I like, doing these type of things. So it wasn't like terrible for me. It was tedious and it took time. But yeah, I just kind of created my own, all the way down to like the logo. Again, I didn't hire anyone, so it was just again knowing what you like and just putting the time into learning how to do those things. So again, I did all of this before doors open. So this was not something I just woke up the next day and said, "Oh, I'm going to open up a practice," right? This was a lot of months planning way in advance before we open up the doors. And even again, I'm going to talk a little bit about my Edge VA, but even before we got started, I wanted my Edge VA to start before the doors even opened so that I could be prepared to do all of these things. And so when patients walked in, it felt as though we had already been here. Like patients were walking in saying like, "I didn't realize you were here." And I'm like, "No, we just came here." You know what I mean? And so just already kind of having that walking through, right? And just practicing these things. Anytime we get new equipment in the office, right? I set it all up and walk through it so that I'm not fumbling through and looking completely lost, with the EHR system, we practice those things. So it gave us time, right? We had a fake patient and we would practice doing these things. And I would do that with my Edge VA and with my new hires. And so again, I think practicing in the beginning and giving yourself time before the doors just open up was what was helpful for me.
That is so amazing. And this really shows the amount of effort and amount of push that you made in those initial days just to get your practice set up and ready to go. And it's kind of an ode to that effort that goes through for all of our fellow practitioners who go through that pain. So I think that resonates pretty deeply here with all the folks we have here. Uh, anyway, please, by all means, continue.
No worries, no worries. All right. So once I laid that foundation, right, then I took the time, right, to map out my outreach. So when I first started out, I didn't have like a huge marketing budget whatsoever. And so what I did was have creativity again, because I like artsy things, and that may not be a you thing, but finding someone that don't mind helping you. And I wanted to highlight how I was different within my niche and pulling in that holistic point of view and that integrative medicine part and a willingness to build relationships. So I really leaned into referrals as my main growth, right? And it worked. So how I started doing it was I had a strategic approach to mapping local practices. And so first started out, okay, how many pediatric practices and family medicine practices are within like a 10-mile radius? What about a 20-mile radius? And so kind of did that from there and went on the way out to, a 30-mile radius. And so my Edge VA helped me do that. And we created a Excel sheet literally of like, these are the practices, these are the services, this is their number, this is their address. And so once I established all of those, again, we have not opened up yet, but this is before. Once I established all of those, then I created referral baskets. So when I tell you referral baskets, I mean, like I have an example of one because I knew I was talking to you. So I had actual old school like referral baskets. And so within those referral baskets, I had referral cards, right? So these were already made. And so these, and you can kind of see here. So referral cards, which basically allow for them to be able to give to their patients and say, the quick little info about them. Here's how it gets faxed over to me. And what is it that they need for me? And I also had a handwritten note introducing myself. So that was something. So my VA couldn't do that, but my new office staff was able to help me with that. And so I just had a hello. And when I say handwritten, these are examples, handwritten note. And also other things that kind of stood out for my practice. So for me, anything that has like your branding on it, pens. And then as a GI doctor, I have little poopies, right? Because I'm pediatric GI, right? So it's kind of cute and they're little stress balls. So I had these. And then from a holistic standpoint, I put in like holistic medicinal like teas that they could use within their office. And so I had all of these things in again, my logo was already branded on all of these things. And so we'd personally go after my VA had made this list, I had the addresses, and we would go to these addresses on her list and drop off these baskets and let them know that, I'm here, I'm happy to see patients. I can get your patients in within the same week. And that one promise made a huge difference. And they just started coming in. And so after having that, when the patients would start coming in, I really focused on using the patient experience to fuel continued referrals because again, at first it was awkward, right? It was awkward saying, how am I going to ask a patient to like review me? But I realized that the best time is right after success. So if a patient tells me, oh, that was great, I enjoyed this visit, you were so great, and I would be like, oh, okay, do you mind? Putting this in a review, and I had a QR code at the checkout that they could just scan and be able to leave the Google review. And so that was helpful as well because my goal was, right, providing the seamless patient experience that was quick so that, when the referrals came in, I could see them within the first week or so. And so overall, having these like quick follow-ups and consistent care, to me, it felt like more organic in terms of getting reviews because they were seeing it happening. It wasn't me promising something that I couldn't deliver. And so it was kind of all in real time. And then again, so for me, how did I kind of identify what was good and how did I assess whether my like referral kind of strategy was working? I looked at the national benchmark. So I'm just going to show you kind of an example of how I did mine. And so I looked at what the national benchmark was for pediatric GI, right? Because again, that's my niche. And so an average, looking here, I was like, okay, I might start out with one clinic day a month versus how many clinic days a month. And so the estimated clinic days were around 2 to 4 clinic days with a half a day to 1 day of procedures, right? So I do endoscopies, like colonoscopies and endoscopies. And so I had to factor that day in would not be a day of seeing patients. So that helped me kind of get started. Also, what was my total working days in the clinic? Overall, I saw on the average national benchmark was 3 to 5 days. But not all were patient visits, right? Some were just kind of like clinic days where they came in and they were doing some admin work and things like that. I'm also a mommy of three, and so I had to put that in mind too, that as I'm scaling and growing, how would that affect their schedules and the things that they require and the time that they require for me to be there for them. So I did that as well. And then on the clinic days, I wanted to understand, okay, what is the average of someone who is like an OG in PGI? Like how many patients are they seeing? And it varied, right, from 8 to 15 patients. For the days that you are not, on average, it was 8 to 15, but I saw anywhere from 15 to 20. And these are going to be your clinic days that don't require procedures. Whereas for me, some of the gastroenterologists, they like to do more procedure days than clinic days. So it was a big varying, but on average, it was 8 to 15 patients. So looking at that, I kind of said, okay, so 10 to 14 is what I should be aiming for over a week, right? 30 to 50 outpatients plus procedures days and schedules. So I kind of had that set up from the beginning of, where we were going.
Dr.
Um,
Sams, we've just had a question come in. I thought I'd, shoot it to you right away. So
yeah.
it's another question from Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer, for asking these wonderful questions, just by the way. Since you delivered these before opening up, and I think she just referred to those baskets that we were talking
Yeah, the
about.
little baskets. Yeah.
Exactly. So since you delivered those baskets before opening up, when did you start dropping them off? Like 1 month, 2 months, or 3 weeks before opening up? And did you
Oh,
take a lot of insurances so they knew you took patient insurances?
Yes, yes, and I was going to speak on that as well. So yes, I dropped them off a couple weeks before opening, so not too early because I didn't want it to get lost and they sit it aside and they forgot about it. So it was only a couple weeks before opening, so it allowed for me to go ahead and start scheduling patients, right? Because there's nothing that's going to stop you from scheduling patients ahead of time. So I started scheduling patients about a couple weeks out from when I was opening, and I had already started my credentialing process before. And so a lot of the major credentialing insurance companies were already done. And I'll speak a little bit more about that as well, Jennifer, because there's not a right or wrong way of doing that. I have other colleagues who who opened up and before their credentialing was complete and just started seeing cash only patients in the beginning. And so depending upon the insurance company, some of them will retroactively versus not. And so again, it really depends on like the insurers you're trying to credential with and what their rules are regarding credentialing. And kind of if you're wanting to just go ahead and get started versus if you wanted to wait. For me, again, knowing my niche in pediatrics, children are expensive, and so healthcare is expensive. And so to me, it was worth the wait to make sure I had credentialing together to make the parents have more at ease to just pay for, like, to be able to come for the visit and be able to pay their copay versus not knowing or having this like larger fee. So again, it can vary, and I think it probably will be very like specialty specific as well.
Wonderful. So Dr. Sams is just trying to sort of understand here because and we know that you've got this amazing system set up for referrals. Let's talk a little bit about handling referrals. And like, for example, you've got a bunch of referrals now, they're walking through the front door and you've got an influx of new patients. How can the additional support, for example, like the ed staff that you've hired, how has that come in handy to help manage that influx of folks when they walk through the door?
Yeah, so that has been super helpful because as people were coming in for the referrals or with the referrals, my Edge staff member would collect that information and we would start to list and have information about where we were getting these referral sources from. So I started that day one so that I can start tracking. Also, it depends on your EHR. So my EHR, you can actually put them in and you can start to track the referrals that way. And then lastly, in terms of kind of going through them, again, my EHR system allowed for all of these things. And so as soon as patients, we would get faxes in, I use a virtual fax system. And so that allowed for my VA to get the same faxes instantly. And so as they would come in, we check them every, at least twice a day, we're checking them and we were calling back the doctors and the patients immediately to get them scheduled. So it was a daily thing as they started to roll in.
Oh wow, that's must have been keeping you on your toes, huh?
Yes. Still on those. Um, And so this here was, okay, again, this is all the prep work that goes into and understanding, right? How is this working? And so a typical growth trajectory, this is for a pediatric GI private practice, from 0 to 6 months, right? That's your launch and kind of ramp up. So around this time, patient is flow is often modest, right? So 3 to 6 patients per day, maybe 2 to 3 times a week. This period is all about like setting up the system. So when I was telling you about those systems and things, we'd have a couple patients come in, we try some things out, we'd see how it works. I get feedback from the staff, we make changes, we'd say, uh-oh, in this like intake form, we probably need to clarify this more because we keep getting this error, and so we did that during that time. So I didn't like overextend myself in the beginning purposefully because we're wanting to like, again, I cared about that experience was important. Um, and then the 6 to 12 month, again, this is what from the data shows I'm within the 6 to 12 month period, but this is like outreach is being consistent and building these like trusts with the pediatricians and like the other like family practices. And so you could expect to see 8 to 10 patients a day on clinic days that you're in. And then it kind of went through going all the way to year two and year three. And again, your benchmark is based off of a year three. I use mine as a year three benchmark and with the patient volume anywhere from 10 to 15 patients a day, which again falls in line with that national average that I had in mind. And that doing a 3 to 4 clinic days per week, right? And looking at that. So again, acknowledging when I first opened up, it was going to be light, but to me, I utilized that time to get things right. Um, and so again, just a quick look at there. So I'm here. I say you are here. This is me, right? I'm still in the year one, and that's establishing my patient base. And as you can see, starting anywhere from 3 to 10 patients per day within that first year is kind of your goal. And that can change depending upon what you want your days to look like, especially from a pediatric GI perspective. The other thing is, again, keeping that same week access. That the promise so far has still been great. And the referring providers love this because within my niche, turnaround or wait time can be anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And so knowing that wait time, and so now being able to say I can get your patient in for the same week has been great. And then tracking those referral sources so that, I remember the first week when we sent out when I went and dropped the baskets off, I had my Edge VA. We would call those places, right? And say, hey, do you have any referrals for us? Hey, do you have anything for us? So we hounded them in the beginning because, they're so used to like referring to others and they're kind of like, who is this person? But guess what? I had the website, I had all this stuff, so I looked legit. So they were like, okay, we'll try her out. And then after that, we didn't have to call them anymore. They were calling us saying, hey, can we get more referral cards? Can we get more of these? So it was pretty nice having that to do. And then also having that telehealth for me was able to have the telehealth from there. And then key factors that can affect that timeline, right? So, how quickly are you able to establish relationships with your pediatricians and your family medicine and urgent cares and all of these things? For me, again, I probably bothered them enough where they're like, we know this person, we didn't even know we know them. Again, what is the local demand and competition, right? In so many areas, like for me, there's a shortage of pediatric subspecialists, so including GI. So that worked to my advantage because I knew that my competition were wait times were out of this world. And so it was nice to come in and provide this plus a little extra to have these patients want to stay with me. And then speaking on the insurance paneling, how fast you get credentialed, again, can play a role, right? Whether you're in network or out of network, and whether you're going to take Medicaid and Medicare plans. For us, for pediatrics, it's Medicaid plans. And so that can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, right? For the first wave of kind of getting established. And so I started that kind of early on. I knew nothing about it. And so it was just like, well, I didn't do that on my own. I like had a credentialing team to help me get started as I was learning that process. And again, I did that. I chose to do it before I got set up with my office and kind of started promoting. And again, your in clinic infrastructure and what does that look like, right? Are you going to be solo practice? Are you going to have other providers? Are you going to have provider assistants like an NP or like a PA? And then how many exam rooms, staff? Because, right, you got to think about how does this flow, right? If you bring in too many patients and you only got one room, then there's going to be a lot of people sitting in the waiting room and they're going to be mad. So I thought about all of these things prior to doing it, right? And so, um, looking there. So how does my clinic stack up against the benchmarks, right? Everybody wants to know, right? I'm at 8 months in, and this past week was a scope week. So I only saw Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I do 4 days a week. I'm off on Mondays. I do clinic days. So we're open on Mondays in terms of accepting patients and things like that. But on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, I'm in the office. So I just pull this straight off of my account. So Tuesday I had 12, Wednesday I had 10, and then on Thursday I had 7, and then on Fridays I scoped. So again, this is within 8 months. I have over 130 Google reviews, 5-star reviews, right? Again, we're just within 8 months. And again, kind of going back to what the benchmarks for most new private practice GI, it takes about 18 to 36 months to reach this average volume, which is 10 to 12, and we're 8 months in. So my goal is to only kind of grow from here, right? Um, and so kind of knowing those numbers, that to me say kind of how well do I think that I'm doing throughout all of this? So yes,
Dr. Sams, sorry to
yes.
cut you off yet again, but we've got some very
Yeah, no,
interesting
no,
questions for
please,
you.
please, please, please.
So the first question is again from our good friend Jennifer. She's asking, what do you think about HIPAA compliant virtual referral forms versus virtual fax referral forms? Do you think referring providers would want to refer a patient from online versus having to send a fax?
So yeah, so good question. So I that actually came out when I was doing it. Um, Most doctors are busy. This is how it was explained to me and what I utilize in mine with the advice I got is that if you are busy and you are just seeing a patient, it's going to take more steps for that doctor to then go online to pull you up to try to put in a referral than if they have a paper just sitting there they can grab and write on. So in the beginning, that is what I like held tight on, and I went old school paper. Now, do I have a way online? Yes, because you remember on my website, I already had the link embedded in where they could put it in the referrals, or they could go ahead and schedule. Even the patients themselves can schedule for the tech savvy. But in terms of, for me, I wanted to bring it back to hands on the ground, hands and feet on the ground, walking door to door, knocking type thing, and having those papers just there, they were able to grab and could fax it over in a HIPAA compliant way.
Wonderful. And just one more question, and then we can get back into the flow of things. So, another question from Jennifer. She asks, do you send your referring providers any patient updates, partnership emails, and anything else to help you stand out?
Yes, so depending upon your again your EHR, if you have for hours, it can be embedded where it can auto send. But the other thing that we did, and this is a newer thing, is that we created a feedback card. And so on my feedback card, I asked them like, do they prefer and do they like these? Because I got mixed reviews. I have some doctors that like love them and they want to know what the updates are, and some doctors are like, I don't read them. If you need me to like chime in, I'm here, but call me if you need me. But thank you for seeing my patient. So again, I have not collected data on those yet, but that is again, this is kind of the how accelerating my growth. But that is a good question. So I don't have the data on it now, but right now through my EHR, it can automatically send out those. But I always wonder is do they care like about getting them, and for which ones do they care? So that is something that I have created for our like feedback cards for my referral sources.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Please continue, Dr. Sams.
Yeah, no worries. So again, now, right, referrals again don't happen unless experience is exceptional. So I think that that's truly important. So patients need to feel truly cared for from check-in to follow-up, right? Because that's the story that they're going to share. And doctors and providers, right, the same is true. I wanted them to see not only how I care for patients, but also how easy it was to work with me. And so to speed up like the growth, I focused on being the easiest doctor to refer, right? So those same week access, quick consult notes back to them, and memorable touches, right? To keep me in mind, right? The little poop things, the teas, all these kind of things to kind of remember. And then the telehealth. So one of the things I think is kind of streamlining the documentation. And so I worked with my Edge VA as well on how we were going to streamline. So again, starting all the way from intake forms to follow-up forms to creating the note templates. So I already had the note template set up. The other thing that my Edge VA would do is, depending upon if it was a new patient or a follow-up, because I created the templates, it was easy for her to go in and say, okay, these are the patients for today, and go ahead and just get the template set up and have them open. So when I would go into the patient's room, I could immediately go in and start doing that. And I'm not trying to create a note. I'm not trying to do this. Right. And so I already had my front desk. They go in, they already got height, weight. And so I'm reviewing all these things before. The other thing that we're doing, and this is again, a work in progress, is making sure that all of the patients that have been referred to me, that there are um, notes already in place. So getting their medical records in as a referral source, kind of wanting to understand more information about why they're being referred and what has already been done. And so that within itself has been a challenge, not because they're not sending them, but because how quickly we were able to get patients in. And so it was often if we could get them in the same day, by the time the referral, the patient notes were coming in, it was, you know, maybe that morning. And so I, hadn't had a chance to like review all the full like 50, 60 pages of history. And so in the beginning, my appointment visits were longer because I was gathering all the history firsthand. But now that we've kind of gotten this system in place and I've utilized my Edge VA and kind of trained my Edge VA on what I need to pull out of there, what do I need to look for, now we can get these patients in. And I've already like reviewed all of the main pertinent history. We've gotten in all the labs that we need. And so the visits are a lot more faster and efficient. And so we're able to that again probably was another way why we were able to scale so quickly and get close to those national benchmarks so fast. So that was one of the things. And then again, we talked about the optimizing the referral tracking. So this approach completely changed my overall referral flow because as I was building those relationships, from the start, we started listing out how many patients are we getting from them. So I would have my front desk, say, okay, how many patients did we get from this patient, this provider, this provider, this office, this doctor, and thank them, send out a message. Thank you guys so much, for referring. And so again, that to me, I felt helped build my credibility pretty quickly within the community. And it allowed me to like grow without spending thousands on ads, right? Because have you mentioned I've said nothing about ads because I didn't pay for any ads. So that's been helpful. Let's see here. So how my like Edge VA helped me. So again, I didn't do this alone. In the beginning, my Edge VA like helped me create the systems to set my practice up efficiently and like keep the referrals organized. So like I said, when I met with the Edge team and I decided that I wanted a VA, I met with them early on, like months in advance, and I told them, hey, this is a new practice and I want my VA to get started a little bit sooner. And particularly, again, you're able to choose what type of VA you want. For me, I wanted a medical assistant, and it was important for me that this person worked within a subspecialty niche because I knew that that was going to be challenges when it comes to insurance. And so after I interviewed all the different ones, it was like, do they do subspecialty? Are they not? Okay. I mean, you seem nice, but this is not going to work. And I was like, that to me was important because I knew that was something new for me. And so I wanted someone that had some insight so that we both weren't lost looking at each other. And so that to me was key. So I was lucky enough to get an MA through Edge who had worked for a subspecialist and understood all of the things about you got to get the referrals first, right? From the primary, right? These are the things you have to do. Knowing how to go ahead and get prior authorizations for the procedures, right? Because I'm doing my colonoscopies and endoscopies and you got to get prior auth. So she came already knowing how to do those things. And so it was absolutely wonderful because again, I could see the patient and she could make sure that this was done. And so knowing what you want, but again, that took for me to plan ahead and knew exactly what I wanted out of my medical assistant. And so when I met with Edge, I like said, these are the things I wanted from the beginning. And so again, that helped me because it allowed me to have more time with patient interactions, and I'm not trying to figure that out. It improved patient satisfaction and loyalty because again, she already knew these things. When they were calling in, she knew the lingo about, well, yep, let me see. Okay, yep, we got the referral on file. Okay, this is your co-insurance. This is going to be your co-pay. I was like, these are all foreign to me, right? And so it was great that this was a language she spoke very well already. So that was helpful. So again, I could just be proactive and really focus on delivering great service.
That's wonderful, Dr. Sams. And I really like this is all amazing stuff. And now it's just like now that you've gone through all of this, now I think a lot of the folks on this call want to know a little more about the results. So just like as a general question for somebody who would say, for example, was in your shoes 7 months ago, right? In the first month of when your
Mhm.
practice opened up. Looking back to the Derica Sams 7 months ago that just opened up pediatric digestive health and wellness, what is something that you wish you knew earlier that would have helped like you at that time as a new practice owner to get set up quicker, set up shop more quickly?
Understanding the insurance and how complicated it is in the back end on, well, not the Both, yeah, in the back end. Because I understand it, like, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to have insurance. Yeah, this is copays. Like like I said, I had a very basic knowledge of that. And coming from working in academia and being in academia where everything is like handled by a team, right? I don't see that in the afterwards. If a patient calls in, I don't have those calls. I don't have any insight on those calls, right? And going through training, no one teaches you about those things. And so to me, that would be something that I feel like I would have added on in terms of being better prepared because the patients are rolling in. And so that was something now I'm like, okay, I wish I kind of knew that a little bit better so I could know what to expect, know what I should be looking for in terms of like reimbursements, all those things would be the biggest part for me.
Perfect. And then like just one question that Jennifer has for us. She asks, how many hours did you use your Edge VA for at first while building your referrals? Are they only focused on referrals now and no other tasks? Or do you feel like referrals needs its own role, or can a care coordinator also do this for you?
Okay, so how many hours? So in the beginning, when we first got started, I had said she knows it was like this is a hybrid thing. So in the beginning it was mostly referrals and creating intake forms and things. So I utilized I have I don't know if that's all the options, but I have her full time, and so I utilize every part of the time that is available because there's always something to do. So, and it all still ties back to patient care. So, when we were creating the referral sources as they were coming in, we were needing to know what the patient intake forms, what the HIPAA forms needed to look like, right? So, doing research on that and knowing what we need to have within those. And then when they come in, what is the flow going to look like from there? So, I utilize the time completely. So to answer your question in terms of that, and then in terms of like a patient care coordinator and how is my MA still doing or edge worker still doing the same things? So again, we're still very new, and so it's a lot of hybrid. I tell my staff that everyone has their own thing to do, but everyone should know how to do everyone else's job. And that's just my thing because it's important, right? If my edge worker is not available and she's sick, then that means that day all of that shuts down and that shouldn't happen, right? It's so again, it's always constantly training. So if she's free and she doesn't have any referrals or she's not answering the phones, then it goes over to okay, so let me see how these things are done on the back end, right? We use the telehealth services, we use web conferencing a lot, and so we would introduce her to like the patients in the room, and so she could be a part of those visits to see how the visits go, to understand what her role in terms of getting the notes prepared, how that affects the role of the MA that's on site, getting the, weight, height. And so again, learning the processes is what I incorporated. So I utilize all of her time still. I feel like there's always something to do. And then in terms of a patient care coordinator, I don't have one. We're all doing patient care coordination together. So I can't, I don't know, speaking on if that would be better or not.
Wonderful. Perfect. Please continue, Dr. Sams.
Oh no, this is the last slide. So just saying, start again, highlighting, start with a strong foundation, right? So think strategically, build your systems ahead of time, and use companies, right, like Edge to help scale smarter. And so my advice overall to doctors or providers who are kind of new in there is don't try to do it all alone, like build these referral systems, leveraging platforms, right, like Edge, and delegate your logistics to your virtual assistant, your medical assistant, so you can focus on what matters, which is patient care. Because once the patients start rolling in, that should be your focus. Like you should not be worrying about, oh, okay, did we call that doctor back for the referral? Did we do the faxes? Like we establish all of that ahead of time. And that is what I utilize my Edge worker ahead of time so that we created kind of a checklist and systems in place so that once the patients start rolling in, again, we created this seamless environment and parents felt like, oh, you're just open. Like it felt like we've been here, right? Because we would practice these things out. Um, and so I think that to me was the most important. So I think to thrive overall in your practice, you got to implement these efficient systems and utilize your your help that you have chosen, whether your MAs, your if you do have a patient care coordinator, your nurses, your PAs, and utilize them effectively. And all like time matters, and you have to allow yourself to let go because it's like this is my baby, and I want to just be able to do everything, but I got to walk away and allow that person, right? Because I have put trust in that person. Doesn't mean that I don't check, but to me, having that and knowing that they can do it. Uh, because again, I established ahead of time what my expectations were and what we wanted from that overall. So I think again, focus on building like relationships with patients and enhancing their experience, right? Overall, that within itself can lead to increased referrals and and make your practice have a sustainable growth. So
Awesome. I
that's
guess if
all I
this is
got
the
for
final
that.
slide, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Dr. Sams. This was amazing. And I just want to round things off by asking a very straightforward question. And this is just something for the good folks who've joined us today to take home with them, to think about this webinar as they proceed with their day. So, what are one or two key things that every practice owner should start doing like right now to start getting more referrals?
Know your referral source. Like identify what's your referral sources, I would say. What about your practice makes you unique that those referral sources will want to refer to you? So for me, it was the integration of like the holistic integrative medicine and the ability to provide patient visits within a week or two, which I know my other colleagues couldn't do. And so providing those, and I would say making sure that everyone within your team, when those patients walk through the door, understand what your vision for your office is and that they embody that vision. To me is super important.
Well, that is really, really something to think about. And no, that is top top on the mark right there. Final thing, just the last thing, and then we can start wrapping things up. How
Yes.
important would you say our mindset and consistency compared to big or like fancy strategies? Because a lot of folks will take the easy way out. They'll go for paid ads. And we've seen through what everything you've done, you've made the effort to get here. So what's the, advice you're going to give to everybody to just, achieve what you achieved in the time that you have?
People realize and can feel and sense your passion. A paid ad cannot do that. And that's, I think, is something that was helpful and what made this experience so organic for me was to be able to get out there and say, I'm here, this is what I'm passionate about. Um, because what made me different than the next pediatric GI, right? We all went through training, we all took these tests, we all did these things. So in theory, we should all know how to treat the patient, when it came to medical care. But having that humanistic and that compassion, I think, is something you got to be able to show. And I didn't find that being able to do that with Google Ads and all of that would do it for me. Now, I do utilize science and technology and AI within my practice to make it more efficient. So I'm not anti like doing those things. But I just think when I was trying to set myself out from the competition, I wanted to say, hey, I'm in the community and I'm wanting to provide a community service and be there so that you don't feel like you're just coming to this, sign up here environment, sign you up, get you in, get you out environment that didn't, and the doctor had no connection with you. So I allowed to utilize like AI and things like that so that it helped me. So within my visits that I can take more time spending face-to-face time with my patients. Other outside of that, I wanted to present myself like forward facing throughout this entire kind of process.
Before I wrap things up, Jennifer came in with a clutch last minute question. So we're just going to answer that one and then we're going to wrap things up. So Jennifer's question is, we are opening our virtual clinic doors in January. When would you recommend we should start letting referring providers know about us, especially with the holidays coming up? We don't want them to forget about us because of the holidays.
Yeah, so I opened in January, and but I had met with Edge and all of that way before the holidays, and then we got started, like I said, weeks before, and I opened midway through January, so we went and started doing all of my comment cards and all those things that whole month of January. So I started like way before and was already doing those, and then that whole month. And so by the time my Edge MA came on, she was we again we had that list, that referral list, and she was able to start calling them back as well and saying, "Hey, do you have someone available? We're open now." So again, I didn't do it too far in advance, but I do know some colleagues that are before they open, they were booking out, a month or two in advance. For my patient, again, you gotta know your patient population. For my patient population, the parents get a little antsy because there's only so long you can wait for a kiddo that's having like bloody diarrhea or like constipate. Like they're just so uncomfortable, right? And they're vomiting and they're not keeping food down. And so for me, it was important that as soon as they knew about me, they could utilize my services. But that might not be the case for you in particular. So again, knowing that's why it's important to kind of know your niche and know what like the expectations are within it.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Sams, for this wonderful webinar and for these amazing slides and for your time, most importantly, for joining us today in our webinar for referrals that build empires. And thank you so much, everybody, for sticking around. Uh, have a very wonderful rest of your day, and I think we can call it at that. Good afternoon, guys. Of course, for Jennifer, we will get you a copy of the recording. Right. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.